Hey, this is John Lee Dumas introducing Jane Jackson Careers, a podcast that will inspire you to take control of your career and your life. Here's your host, Jane Jackson, career management coach and author of Navigating Career Crossroads. Be prepared to ignite.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. You can get a free audiobook download and free 30-day trial at audibletrial.com/Jane Jackson Careers. There are over 180,000 book titles to choose, so give it a go and get your free audiobook today from audibletrial.com/Jane Jackson Careers. Welcome back to my Careers podcast, where I find out about the career paths of successful professionals and entrepreneurs. Now, today I'm delighted to have with me on the show Penny Webb. Penny is a freelance writer and editor. She writes features, profile pieces, and travel articles for a number of publications and edits the Hills and Hawkesbury Independent Magazines. She also runs a travel podcast called the Suburban Gypsy, which is all about inspiring people to experience the world through travel, regardless of their life circumstances. Her work has been published in Peekaboo magazine, Out and About with Kids, and Child magazines. She won an international award at the Parenting Media Association Awards in Baltimore, USA this March 2015, where her writing was described as journalism with a smile. This year, she traveled to the Cook Islands, Tasmania, Fiji and China. And next year, Iceland and Italy are on the cards. This is a lucky lady. So welcome, Penny, to the show.
Hi, Jane. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, I've been really looking forward to talking to you because I think you've got lots of interesting and fun things to tell us, not only about your career journey, but also all about the Suburban Gypsy podcast too. So how about, to kick us off, tell us a little bit about you in the early days. Were you always keen on journalism, or was there something else?
Well, no, I went to, at the very beginning, I started with hotel management and hospitality. In my teens, I just loved the idea of working in a 5-star environment. I used to go on little trips with one of my girlfriends into the city, and we'd have morning tea at the Four Seasons Hotel, and we'd have lunch at the Intercontinental. We'd save up our money. I used to work in a chicken shop, and I'd save up my money and go to all these beautiful, beautiful hotels. And I always loved walking into these 5-star lobbies, you know, the beautiful big lobbies, and it's marble and it's just gorgeous. And so I was keen to get into hotel management and hospitality. Travel was always in the background around that. I thought that hotels and hospitality management would be a great way to travel, and it was. What I didn't realize at the time is that the back of house of hotels looks very different to the front of house. So I wasn't exactly surrounded by all that marble and opulence all the time. It's a lot of concrete and stainless steel in the back end of the hotels. So that's what I did. I got a university degree in hotel management and worked in the hotel environment for a number of years. I traveled. I went overseas in my 20s for 5 years and worked for Forte Hotels, Intercontinental in Scotland. I worked in Spain for a repping company there. I worked on the QE2 for a couple of years. It was a fantastic way to see the world. And then I came back to Sydney and shifted across to event production, working within hotels and running corporate events within hotels. And then from there, I moved across to the training side of things, still with my feet dipped into events and teaching, and then ended back up into corporate events again until I made a bit of a shift.
What a fascinating journey. That's incredible. There's so many questions I want to ask you about everything because it sounds amazing. But what really captured my attention was working on the QE2 for a few years.
Yes.
So traveling the world on a cruise liner, what was that like? What were you doing?
I was waitressing, and I ended up as a supervisor in one of the restaurants. So the restaurant that I worked in was called the Mauritania, and it would seat 550 people for a lunch or a dinner sitting. And the Mauritania restaurant was actually the only restaurant on the ship where we would have a double seating. So we'd have passengers come in at 5:45, and we would have to have them fed and watered and on their way by 8:30 to have the next round of passengers come in. The next 550 passengers come in for an 8:30 dinner as well. So it was really hard work. We never had a day off. You had what was called a watch off, which was either a breakfast or a lunch. And even then, that was pretty rare. And it was if we were in a port where we knew, for example, like Bermuda, where a lot of the passengers would be out and about during the day and not coming back to the ship to eat lunch. But we worked every single dinner and most breakfasts as well. So really hard work, but a fantastic way to see the world. And one of the best things about it was we did 3-month contracts. So I would work pretty much every day for 3 months, and then you would have a month off. So what I found was handy with working on the ship and living on the ship was I'd see all these fabulous ports and I'd go, okay, this would be a good one to come back to in my leave. Or no, glad I didn't spend money flying here. This is not a great port. I don't really like the look of this place. And then in my month off, I'd grab my backpack and go and travel, sometimes with friends from the ship, sometimes with other friends, sometimes by myself. So it was a really good way to see the world.
This must have been when you got your massive travel bug, and maybe that was when the seed was planted for the Suburban Gypsy podcast.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I was living in Scotland before I moved on to the QE. I lived on the ship. So before I moved onto the QE2, and we had a great job. I had a great job in Scotland. I was working for Intercontinental Hotels and loved being in Edinburgh. It was a beautiful spot. But I had left Australia to travel. And I'd found, I've got a job and I've been here for 6 to 9 months and this isn't traveling. So I thought, well, what will allow me to travel? And being an air steward was one. And then I saw an ad for cruise ship staff. I thought, great, that's going to be it. So that definitely planted the seed. I've always loved travel, always loved looking at travel brochures when I was a kid. I used to get travel brochures, or if mum brought some home, I would love flipping through the glossy pages of a travel brochure, and I'd cut them out, I'd stick them into scrapbooks. Actually, that just came to me then. I'd forgotten all about that. So I've always been a bit of a gypsy, easy gypsy blood running through these veins for sure.
Oh, and you must have met some of the most fascinating people as well in the hotels, because they would be travelers coming in and then you traveling yourself. I mean, it's just an amazing journey. And then I'm just pulling out all of the transferable skills that you will have developed over the years as well, with customer service, your organizational skills, especially with, like the time management skills as well when you're at the restaurant. And just having to juggle so much, as well as being able to probably negotiate your way through some tricky experiences, during your travels as well.
Most definitely.
What was the most fun experience that you've had?
Oh, that's a tough question. Look, I know this doesn't sound fun, but we hit the back end of a hurricane on the QE2 in between New York and Bermuda.
Not fun at all.
But gee, it makes you feel alive when nature dictates what's going to happen. I was just fascinated with, number one, how passengers dealt with it. Some of them were so determined to still get themselves to the buffet and get their, free food, not free food, but, get their lunch. But it got to the point where we basically had to close nearly all of the restaurants down and just do room service. But I was rostered on to one of the other restaurants. Every now and then you had to work in the Lido, it was called, which is at the back of the ship. And I remember just standing at the back of the ship, holding onto a pole because you couldn't walk anywhere because it was so up and down. And it was, it's what you call an old sea, where you're not only going up and down, you're also rolling side to side.
Oh my goodness.
And I remember just hanging on to the column. I wasn't scared at all. And I was just watching that sea and just going, wow. The ocean is amazing anyway. I've always loved water. But seeing Mother Nature at her finest, that was kind of fun watching that. Other things certainly around working on the ship was, having dolphins and pods of whales come along and swim along with you on the ship and watching that. Other fun things would be, Barbados one night, Florida, Fort Lauderdale the next. The best thing about it was just waking up in a different support every single day. It was amazing.
You know, Penny, your sense of fun is slightly different from my sense of fun. Just you talking about the hurricane has brought back these memories now. Probably being on a large cruise liner and having the rolling and the up and down and the side, all that horrible stuff you were saying was one thing. But I remember I was once out on the Sydney Harbour for the Sydney Hobart Yacht Race on Boxing Day, and we went out there, and it was just a little boat with some friends, and the weather turned. And it was unbelievable, because on a little boat, when you're being tossed and turned and the water's splashing in your face, and I remember my husband was saying, "Isn't this great?" because he loves sailing. "Isn't this great? Isn't this great?" And I was thinking, no.
I understand your husband. There's something about
goodness.
having that thrown up in your face that
Yeah.
really makes you feel alive. And yes, it is great. I understand where he's coming from there.
I'm very happy just to open the car window and have the wind in my face. That's quite enough. Okay, back to you. So, and then how wonderful, waking up and seeing dolphins swimming alongside the boat in a new country in anyone, what is it, a new city, every port a new city, or whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
Amazing. So that was the fun side of things. What did you find most challenging about anything that you were doing during those days?
I think it was definitely the hard work, and certainly when I was overseas, you're away from your family and your friends. When you're in your early 20s, I was away from age 21 to 26, it would have been. It's you're out and about and seeing the world, and you're grabbing all these opportunities, but there was still, I didn't have my mom with me, I didn't have my dad with me, and I had a very close bunch of girlfriends and still do, and I miss them a lot. So being away from family and friends, when things got a bit tough, and not having them on the end, things were different back then in the 90s. We didn't have Facebook. We had the internet, but it wasn't overly functional. Certainly wasn't as accessible as it is now. So being away from that little support, your nucleus, your family and your friends, your local nucleus, that was one of the most difficult things. Money was always an issue for me because I would spend it on traveling. So as soon as I had it, I would spend it on flight tickets, accommodation, or going to my next destination. And the other thing would be sometimes being alone. Sometimes I would be in a city and I'd be all by myself, and something might be a bit tough and I would have to deal with it myself. So yeah, I found that difficult sometimes. And that's why things like working on the QE2 or working in Spain was great, because you were with a group of people all the time.
You would have developed a huge amount of resilience as well, being on your own and then experiencing lots of challenges, always being somewhere new and different, and having to be quite innovative, inventive as to how you react to certain situations.
I don't know if it's the folly of youth or just complete naivety, because certainly now in my early 40s, I would not have put myself in quite a few of those positions that I was in. And I think there was a level of being naive about what could go wrong, which, of course, as we get older, we understand that we're a little bit more understanding of what consequences are, whereas when you're younger, you have no idea, which is great, but can also be dangerous at times too.
Well, I remember when I was in my early teens, in my mid-teens and early 20s, I was invincible.
Yes.
Absolutely right. You put yourself into some pretty silly situations sometimes, but we're just lucky to be able to tell the story.
Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm curious. So with this, hospitality, hotel management, travel, events production, doing the corporate events, how did you end up becoming a writer and editor?
So with corporate events, we worked on a strategic level with our clients. So we would create content for the event. So create a show as such. So there might be script writing involved in that, blocking a show, writing the opening comments for it. So I would get involved in that side of things, and always found I had a little bit of an affinity for that. And also I worked, when I had my children, I moved across to the training department of the event production company I worked for. So I started writing training books and PowerPoints and training programs for event managers within the business, and found that came to me quite easily. Now, I've always loved writing. When I was tiny, tiny little, probably kindergarten, first class, I do remember wanting to be a writer way back then before hotels took over. So, and I'd always written, I have always written in journals, and really enjoyed that side of things. So that sort of shifted me across. And when I was training and teaching, I taught at the International College of Management at Sydney in Manly Beach as well. I really loved that creative element to the teaching. And that's where it sort of started to rear its, and I won't say ugly head, it started to rear its beautiful head to me. And I thought, oh, okay, I really enjoy the writing side of things. So that's when it started to head that way.
And so did you transition out of hospitality straight into freelance writing, or was there a few changes before then?
I had moved across to working for an agency in Bondi, still in event production and corporate events, and I was managing a big IT company, their corporate side of things for the corporate event side of things for the agency. And as quite often happens, there was a few life crises in that whole period, a few family things that happened, some health issues, and it was that time where you get a bit of perspective on everything. And I sat back and I thought, I am in events because I'm good at it, not because I love it. What do I want to do? I had just turned 40, and you sort of get to a point where you kind of go, this is a big number, 40. I might want to change things. Do I want to be in events for the next 20 years? I said no to myself. What do you want to do? I want to write. Okay, let's make this happen. How can we make this happen? So I actually took a leap of faith. Now, by that time, I had already started dabbling a little bit and was writing articles for the Hawkesbury Independent, which is a lovely magazine. It's a nice distribution, actually. It's 21,000 in the Hawkesbury area in Sydney, and had been writing articles for them for a couple of years. And I was also working with child magazines and was helping them with their Make My Life More page, which is Sydney's Child, Melbourne's Child, etc. So I had started to dabble. And in May 2014, I jumped off the cliff and went, okay, I'm going to focus on being a writer now. And I resigned from my corporate events job. I signed up for the Australian Writers Centre course on being a freelance writer, and I asked at the time the editor of the Hawkesbury Independent if I could do some more articles, and I also fell back onto my business writing, my professional writing, and I started ghost blogging for small businesses, and that's what helped.
Fascinating. And so now this is your full-time job.
It is. It is. So what I found in the 18 months since I made the career change is that things will land if you make space for them. So what I was doing the ghost blogging and the copywriting. I was managing social media for some businesses. I was also writing newsletters for businesses, but it isn't what I love doing. I love writing articles and submitting those and pitching them and then getting them published. And I also love the editing side of things and managing editorial of different things. I really love that side. It must be the planner, organizer that's in me left over from the event side of things. So I got really tough with myself after the first 6 to 9 months. I went, okay, well, this is going along okay. I'm picking up some more writing work, but I'm focusing now more so on the business side, and it's not the area that I want to go into. So I gradually stepped away from that and had some beautiful clients, and the breaking up of our relationships, so to speak, were actually beautiful and amiable, and worked really well for them at the time, and also worked really well for me. Some of it happened organically, and some of it I instigated as well. And when I made space for that, the other things started to appear. I had more time to focus on my writing. I wrote more articles for the Hawkesbury Independent. In July this year, we published the very first Hills Independent magazine with myself as the editor. And now I've taken over editorial control of the Hawkesbury Independent as well. And it's just because there was space there more than anything. That's what made the difference.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? As soon as you do take a step back and reassess what's most important and what's enjoyable, because so often when we're so busy working in our business, we really forget about the fun stuff. And it ends up being more administrative or more to do with, like business building rather than doing what you enjoy. So it sounds like you're doing a lot of what you really enjoy now, and you won an international award. So
Yes.
Tell me about the Parenting Media Association Awards in Baltimore.
So that came through Child Magazines. So the editor of Child Magazines, Karen, entered the page that I write for them, which is the Make My Life More page. So it's the only page in the magazine that is for parents and has nothing to do with kids. And it's tips and ideas on how to make a parent's life more fun, organised and enjoyable. So I really love putting that page together. And I've met some fantastic people, got in contact with some fantastic people doing that. So they put it forward to this particular awards group, organisation, and they put a couple of other things that Child Magazines had done as well, design, front covers. I think they won a front cover silver as well. So, and then it ended up getting a nod, which was really nice. And I just love the way they described it, journalism with a smile, because that was exactly what I wanted the parents or the mums who were sitting down reading Sydney's Child or Brisbane's Child or whichever issue they were reading. I always wanted them to read my page and smile and go, oh, this is good information. Oh, I'm going to try that. That sounds good. And so that has obviously come through the page and popped out in Baltimore somewhere as an award.
Baltimore, Maryland. Love it. By coincidence, that's where my brother lives.
There you go.
So,
it was an unusual place for it to have the award ceremony. It's not exactly exotic, but hey, I'll take it.
Oh no, Baltimore is a gorgeous, gorgeous place. And I love journalism with a smile. That really describes you to a T, because, I can just, I can hear you smiling, while we're going through this podcast interview as well. Interesting that you mentioned the Australian Writers Centre. Valerie Coos, one of my podcast interviewees as well.
Look, Valerie and Alison Tate, big influences on my writing career, and it's one of the tips that I was including for down the track in the interview for people who want to go and do writing courses. The Australian Writers Centre have got fantastic courses. I've just finished another one with them, and the connections that you get from doing those courses. The network is incredible. I love what Valerie does, and I love the standards that the Australian Writers Centre have, yet they've still got so much personality. It's a strong brand, but a beautiful brand with personality, and it's just full of solutions and assistance for writers. And great thing that she's created.
Yeah, and Valerie and Alison have got their own podcast too, So You Want to Be a Writer, which is a good one.
Avid listener. I love it. Love it. And one of my goals, and I'll do my Crazy Vision board for 2016 in a couple of weeks' time, but one of the goals is to be interviewed by Alison or Valerie for their podcast. I would just love
We're putting it out there. We're putting it out there. Valerie,
absolutely.
I hope you're listening.
I just want to be at that level where the two of them would say, oh, who should we interview next? Oh, that Penny Webb, she's doing stuff. Let's go and speak to her. That would be fantastic.
And she's fun, and she's really interesting. So there you go.
Yeah. So Val, and if you're listening, got my number.
You've thrown down the gauntlet. Now, moving on to podcasts. Suburban Gypsy Travel Podcast. Tell us about this, because this really sounds fascinating.
And that's a great segue, isn't it? And we didn't even plan it that way, Jane.
No.
Suburban Gypsy Travel Podcast is brand new. It's literally just launched a week or two ago. I've got a number of episodes that we're looking to publish this week too. So it came about because once again, with my writing, I've become a little bit more focused on the travel writing side of things, because I am lucky enough to travel so much, and because it's something that I want to do for the rest of my life. As we mentioned at the top when you were saying at the bio, I do get to travel a lot. and I want to make it worth my while and want to include it in my writing career. I want to raise my profile as a travel writer. I've got a few things published from a travel writing perspective, but previously I've been focusing on parenting and general news. So this is a way to transition me and raise my profile as a travel writer within the industry. And also, one of the skills that I have is whether it's from my event days or the communication skills I could have picked up while I was traveling, is interviewing people and getting some great information out of them. So, Suburban Travel Gypsy podcast is about inspiring people to knock down those barriers that so many people put up. Oh, I'd love to go to Italy, they say, but I can't do it at the moment. I've got young kids. We just don't have enough money, or my career just won't allow me to take a month off at the moment. You know, I can't because of my job. I can't because Christmas is coming up. I can't because we've got this happening. I can't. Now, I've heard so many people say this around me. And then I was sitting down one day a couple of months ago, and it was just after I'd got back from China. So I spent a week in China by myself. I left the husband and the kids at home, and felt a little bit guilty about that, but had an amazing time there. And I thought, so many people put these barriers up. I want to break them down. I want to encourage people who have always got that travel bug in them, but have been a little bit squashed down by the circumstances of life and think they can't travel until they retire, you know. And I really want to get everybody thinking twice about that mentality and encouraging them to, regardless of circumstance, travel, whether it's up to the mountains for a weekend, or, you know, if you're lucky enough to go overseas, or if it's getting in a caravan and going up the east coast of Australia. It's getting people to think twice that they can't travel because of A, B, C, and D. Now, I just was speaking to, I got a message from a listener this morning, actually. She's just spent a week by herself, or with a group, but, you know, she left her life behind. She's a mother of 4, and she's got a part-time job with a family business and is also a photographer. She's just spent a week in the high country of Victoria mustering cattle.
Oh, fantastic.
And it's something she just wouldn't have even comprehended doing a year ago, and she is just loving it. She's sending me through her photos. We'll share them on the suburbangypsypodcast.com website. So it's that sort of thing, encouraging people to do that. And we're speaking to people who have traveled, who've lived overseas, and giving people some fantastic tips and ideas, insider secrets about certain destinations. And it's really just to get the gypsy blood flowing within these people, these listeners who have those barriers up. Just want to break them down and change that mindset for them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So often we always put off, you know, the me time, thinking, oh, you know, this is more important or that's more important. And a little bit like when I'm coaching my clients as well, I say, who's the most important person in your life? And they usually, you know, say their families or their children or, you know, and all these other people. But really, the most important person is yourself. And in order to feed your soul, you have to do what you really yearn for and hope for. And I know that for so many people that I know, myself included, travel is a big deal. It's a wonderful thing. And just being able to experience the different cultures. I remember, actually, I'll share with you because you love the travel so much. When I was 17 years old, I was living in Hong Kong, and I hadn't been out of the country for quite a few years, mainly because of, you know, financial situation, because my father had passed away. But I did a lot of part-time work, and I saved up my money, and I begged my mum for a bit more money as well. And I went to America for 2 months, and with a friend, we drove around America in an old beat-up car that cost $200. This is back in, you know, the late 1970s. And it was such an incredible experience to not really have a lot of time limitations, but just drive and stop where you wanted to and look at what you wanted to, stay as long as you like. And it was amazing because it was America, but every place that we went to within America had a slightly different culture as well. And I always think of that as being the most free and exciting and fun time that I've had, even though I've done a fair amount of travel over the years. It was that 2-month period, and I've never had a holiday as long as that ever again. And I really would love to. And now that you've mentioned it, I'm not going to put it off any longer. Penny,
Good.
I'm going to go listen to your Suburban Gypsy podcast and get even more inspired and plan 2016. Where do I want to go? Now, I notice in my intro, Iceland and Italy are on the cards.
Yes.
So tell me a bit about that.
So Iceland, I'm going on a yoga retreat in March with the travel yogi. So if anybody who's into the yoga, meditation, spiritual side of things, which I am, I thoroughly recommend the Travel Yogi. It's basically a travel agency for yoga retreats across the world. Some fantastic retreats. And one of the podcasts that I listen to is called Soul Feed, and it's run by these two gentlemen in New York, Alex and Shannon. Shannon is a yoga teacher, and he is running this particular retreat in Iceland. So I'm heading across there in March to spend a week with that group. See the Northern Lights. And I've been to Iceland before, actually, and loved it. It's an incredible place. So, and of course, it's going to provide so much fodder for hopefully travel articles that I can get published on my return. And Italy is a family holiday that is being planned for our winter, the European summer. So that's in the works right now. And looking to get a villa there for a couple of weeks. And show the kids Italy, because that's such a beautiful place as well.
Oh, that's going to be amazing. I love Italy. And actually, interesting you mentioned the Northern Lights. I think that's going to be so amazing. I went to university in Minnesota, and being up north there, we got the Northern Lights as well. It was just stunning. It was almost like watching UFOs or something. I mean, the colours are amazing. But I think for you being in Iceland and so much further north, they're going to be unbelievable. Lucky. I can't wait to see your photos. That's going to be great. Yep. So tell us now, people I'm sure will want to find out more about you. So tell us, where can we find you, Penny?
So the best place to find me is via the website. Well, there's two websites. There's pennywebb.com.au, which is also linked to suburbangypsypodcast.com. So if you type either of those into the URL, you will get to that. And you can also find me on Facebook underneath Suburban Gypsy Podcast, and that's a really good place to go and get up to date on whenever we upload new episodes, etc. Or you can go to iTunes and subscribe, search for Suburban Gypsy Podcast and subscribe. And I've got a professional writers page, Penny Webb Writer, on Facebook as well, and you find me across Instagram and Twitter as Penny Webb Writer too.
Penny Webb Writer, we will find you. Also, all of these links will be on my show notes on my website at janejacksoncoach.com. And I highly recommend going to suburbangypsypodcast.com and listening in. And I know I'm going to hop onto it as soon as we finish this and listen to your first few episodes. It's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, great. Yeah. And it's just growing. So we've got episode 1 up. So the next one's going up this week, actually, and episode 3 the week after. So it's building. So come along at the beginning so you can be there and watch us grow from the very beginning.
And I'm sure on all of your Instagram photos, it's going to be travel and excitement and food and northern lights and Italian castles and all sorts of things.
Interspersed with kids going to school, that sort of thing.
Okay, well, makes it more real, doesn't it?
It's
besides
the reason
travel, we have to have a life.
Why it's so important to travel.
Penny, what are your top 3 tips for success?
The first one would be learn and capture as much knowledge as you possibly can. The Australian Writers the Australian Writers Centre courses that I did were so fantastic and just gave me so much knowledge and confidence to move ahead with this career path. That would be number 1. Number 2 would be create a network or get involved in networks in the industry that you want to transition into. So I've become a member of a number of Facebook groups where a lot of writers are in there. We talk about who's the editor at such and such now, has anyone pitched to here? And it's really useful, a really useful network to get involved in, because a lot of the time you're working from home, especially as a writer. A lot of us work from home, work remotely. We don't go into an office. So having a lovely supportive network online is a really good thing to have. And then the third thing as well, I would say, just believe in abundance. Believe that a lot of people don't make the step or change into a career because they think that they will never earn as much as they have or are in their current job, but you've got to make space for it. If you believe that if you're on the right path, abundance will present itself to you. It absolutely will. It's just taking the step and trusting that it's the right step for you, and living the life that you want to live as opposed to the life that you think you should be living. Just trust that it's the right way forward, and believe in abundance. The universe will be there for you, for sure.
I absolutely agree. One of my favorite sayings is believe in yourself and create magic. It's been so good talking to you, Penny, and I'm really fortunate to have met you. Thank you, just being able to have the opportunity to have a chat with you. And also, would you be keen to come back again and tell us all about Iceland and Italy later in the year, next year?
I would love to. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And we've been listening to Penny Webb, writer and editor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. You can get a free audiobook download and free 30-day trial at audibletrial.com/Jane Jackson Careers. There are over 180,000 book titles to choose, so give it a go and get your free audiobook today from audibletrial.com/Jane Jackson Careers.
You've been listening to Jane Jackson Careers. Sign up to receive regular career advice at janejacksoncoach.com.